Thank you and welcome to the best panel of today. We will discuss the current and the future state of the cryptocurrency ecosystem. And as you see, we have the largest panel in the country right now, and probably one more person coming in, so it will be a lively discussion. The industry is at a very critical point right now. We have several hype cycles behind us, and we have the scaling problem in front of us. And right now, the big technology companies are entering the space. We have Facebook coming with their own blockchain or digital currency called Libra. We also have Samsung launching their own hardware key storage in their flagship S10. And last week, I just came from a conversation with the Swedish central bank, and they're kind of worried about this Libra and what's going on. And they wonder, should we launch our own digital currency before this happens? And I've had this discussion with them for a few years now, but now they're also getting worried. So either way, we get a huge mainstream adoptions in the coming years, or we'll see the governments getting more worried and pulling the brake. So I would say we have very exciting times in front of us. But today I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, so far 5 panelists. We will be 6. And I think everyone is from the financial sector. I didn't get the background of everyone. But we will discuss how blockchain can empower businesses and investors. All right. Andrew, you're the Chief Strategy Officer of the Gibraltar Stock Exchange. And prior to this, you were in the Shanghai International Energy Exchange with crude oil features. And you had also 20 years at UBS doing various roles. And how come you now went to Gibraltar Stock Exchange and starting with blockchain?
Yeah, so thank you very much, and good afternoon. Yeah, so I'm work out of the Gibraltar Stock Exchange Singapore representative office. So I've been in Singapore for nearly 15 years. So yeah, so it's a very exciting opportunity for me to work with Gibraltar. So essentially, we're sort of approaching the whole digital transformation probably from a macro point of view. So we're actually a regulated European stock exchange. So just like the Deutsche Börse is a regulated stock exchange, or our sister big brother exchange, the London Stock Exchange is regulated, so too is the Gibraltar Stock Exchange, fully regulated under Europe. Where we are different is that we are probably one of the first stock exchanges to be fully deployed on a digital settlement platform called STAX, the Securities Trading, Asset Clearing and Settlement Platform. So there are other exchanges who are doing similar initiatives, such as the Swiss SIX Exchange, the Hong Kong Exchange is looking at this, indeed in Singapore. There's the iStocks Exchange, but essentially one of our key differentiators is that we are a regulated stock exchange, and now, since March, we can offer to list digital assets. So we're taking it very slowly. So when I say digital assets, people think, oh, STOs, but essentially what we can list is, stage 1 is digital funds, so open and closed-ended funds, and bonds, so very vanilla products. So rather than, say, issuing a digital share where we pay you a dividend, we'll say, look, we can help you to raise, you can list you can raise money on our EU accredited exchange where we have accredited investors, and sure, you can pay your investors a coupon. So we're taking it very, very simply. We have an intermediated model, so you can't just come to me and say, like in the Tom Cruise movie, show me the money. You have to come through our member firms. So I can happily say now we have 2 Asian member firms just from the last few weeks. One's called Constant Capital up in Hong Kong. The ex-CEO of the Seychelles Stock Exchange has come on board with us to be a member firm, and we have an Australian member firm as well called Mind Digital. So we're fully regulated. We have We have an intermediated model. Where we see the big growth here in Asia is our friends at the Asia Development Bank say that we need to raise $500 billion collectively as a region here in ASEAN to build new infrastructure. So I'm not talking about Singapore so much, but if you look at Indonesia, Malaysia, Laos, all these places, how do we start to fund capital raisings to build the infrastructure, the requisite infrastructure to make this region a powerful region? So you've got 600 million people here. A lot of them are underbanked, so that kind of touches what our friends at Libra are trying to do. But when I look at Libra, I don't see any Asian representation. They're all basically West Coast guys. But that's said about Libra. But how do we help for financial inclusion in this part of the world? And my answer would be to have to raise capital on regulated exchanges. And if we can use new blockchain technology, then fantastic. But essentially, that's our thesis, is helping to raise capital in this part of the world. Where when you think about it, if One Belt, One Road, if China takes out $1 trillion to deploy to North Asia, to Europe, and if Donald Trump takes out $1 trillion to rebuild America, where's the funding going to come for this part of the world? It's got to come organically from this part of the world and Asia in general. We can't just rely on Mr. Son, from the Vision Fund to invest into Grab. Sure, Grab, has been the beneficiary of such investments, but where does the number 2, the number 3 company get their funding from? So it's got to come organically through a regulated stock exchange such as ourselves.
Super interesting. Thank you for that input. Maybe we could get back to that more about the blockchain enabling financing of new both infrastructure and innovation. Next, I'm going to Joshua Hu. You're the co-founder of QCP Capital. And before, you worked at both Uber and Gojek. And both companies are innovation-driven and distribution services. Is this something that drives you, like distributed systems or innovation, or how? Yeah.
Sure. Maybe I can elaborate. At both companies, I was really operations focused. I think at the end of the day, execution is everything. When you're on the ground building new markets, you're quite disconnected from the product, right? How do I find drivers? How do I find, both sides of the marketplace, riders, food delivery, all that. I think I learned a lot of lessons from there that I bring to what we do on a day-to-day trading crypto, in terms of understanding and dealing with our clients. But it's still a very, very different business model. And I've been out of the mobility space for a while now, so I don't think my commentary there is that relevant anymore.
Was Bitcoin your way into blockchain?
Yes, in the sense that I looked into it because I eavesdropped on someone else's conversation. And they were talking about Bitcoin, and I thought I'd buy some. It's that simple.
Could we get the scene speakers a little louder? I don't really hear everything.
Can you guys hear us?
Yeah, I think the audience can hear us, but it's like this back sound. So tell me, what is QCP Capital?
So we're a proprietary trading firm based in Singapore. We have a spot OTC desk where people buy and sell large amounts of crypto. We deal locally in Singapore dollars and fiat on the fast transfer network, so I think we're one of the only ones doing that in Singapore. And then we provide a few tech solutions to exchanges, wallets, where they're able to get access to our liquidity, which is much deeper off exchange. It's essentially very OTC driven. We don't provide liquidity off exchanges, we provide liquidity to exchanges. That aside from a few investments we've made here and there, most recently in Algorand, and a focus on derivatives. We provide vanilla Bitcoin Ether options, so you can buy, call, put options on crypto, specifically those two products at the moment, and then a few custom structured products. People wanting to buy accumulators or very specific instruments to protect their balance sheets. We would design bespoke contracts and be the balance sheet on the other side of that trade. So think of us kind of as a crypto trading desk for all your needs.
Interesting. What's your typical customer?
We deal almost entirely enterprise, so there's a pretty strict KYC onboarding process with us. We are very focused on Southeast Asia, so only recently, Indonesia has overtaken Singapore as our largest market, as an like non-USD, non-global, so in the region. So Indonesia is an up-and-coming piece for us. We actually own an exchange locally there called Token Crypto. We're about to receive the first license there, so we're very involved in local currencies. And your typical client would be high net worth, family office, crypto project. You'd be surprised. We have a few, I can't name names, some celebrities that even trade with us that have their first Bitcoin, that kind of thing.
Cool, cool. Super interesting. I'll continue with Anthony Lai. Was that correct? Anthony? Anthony. I'm sorry. I'm from Europe, so this Chinese or Asian or names is not my strongest side. So, sorry. You're the CEO, VB Fleming, but you're also involved in different other projects. Please tell me, what do you do?
Well, just a short introduction. Right? WB Fleming, we started out as a blockchain consultancy, and over the year plus or so, we helped some companies raise some funds. Basically, we all gathered together at the same time when we started the company. It's more started from a private equity advisory, and we helped some of the companies raise in the private placement stage, and not so much of the ICO. So, but over time, and then there's no ICO anymore, and we help some of the companies to introduce them to the regional network and help them to expand in some of the countries regionally. And the other hat that I'm wearing, I'm part of an initial founding member of ITSA, which is the International Token Standardization Association. It's headquartered in Berlin. And some of the earlier founding members are guys like Solaris Bank, Bank Frick, and some of these like association of German banks. Basically, it's a bunch of blockchain-related companies. And we see that there is a need to standardize some of the token aspects. I'll give you one example. In the bond trading space, in the traditional space, if you want to identify a bond, you have an ISIN. So we're hoping that we can create similar as a token identification is ITIN instead of ISIN. So that would be helpful in the future. We anticipate if this tokenized form of bonds can be traded freely. That is in the future. So we are helping in terms of like ideation and also contributing in terms of some of my background from capital markets and banking. Hopefully that will help in the design of standardization of tokens in that space as well.
So basically creating a portfolio of crypto standards or token standards, so it makes it easier for the traditional finance, to just translate whatever your product is into this token standard.
Well, in simplistic form, yes, it's something like that, yeah.
And what's the long-term goal for this association? Sorry? What's the goal? The
goal is really, as the name suggests, right? International Token Standardization Association. It's almost like an ISO organization, but we're not ISO organization. It's just a bunch of people who are doing it for free, hopefully to achieve global standardization so that different parties, either they're from financial institution or not financial institution, they'll be able to identify a certain token of a certain standard, a certain data fields that we need to have. Just as if you want to identify a bond, then there are different identity to the bond is unique to that particular security. So we would like to be able to identify a certain security token based on the unique identifier. So that's just a starting point. There are many other aspects in the ISO standards, for example.
Super cool. Maybe we'll get back to that more. So how did you first get in contact with blockchain?
Oh, myself, blockchain probably in 2015 or so. I was involved in some, number one, there was some projects, and then after that, there was some training, and I was still in the bank. I left the bank end of August last year, so all these years I've been in banking. I first heard about Bitcoin probably about 2011, but I didn't know what to do with it. didn't understand mining. Asked around, most people told me it was scam. And after that, there was the Silk Road episode and things like that. I didn't want to do anything with cryptocurrency up till 2015 because work required me to understand the blockchain. So I took the initiative. I signed up for some online courses and learned a bunch of some coding and blockchain proof of work and things like that, just really to help me to understand so that I could do my job. But then when I found out about smart contracts, Ethereum, it was really interesting. So that's how I started to be a bit more active in seeking out people and asking them questions to educate myself mainly. So from there, I started to invest in the early ICOs, and over time that I advised some companies in ICOs as well. And of course, speaking in different conferences, meeting people, learning from different people. So that's how I started into more active in the blockchain space.
Yeah, I listened to the panel before, and one of the questions was, what is blockchain? And it's a difficult concept for many people to understand. And even Bitcoin is very difficult to really understand what it is. So that's definitely, education is a challenge all of us are facing. So thank you. I want to continue with Ikama. What's that? Ikama Bueno. So you're business developer manager at Cumberland. And prior you were with the Mitsu Financial Group, sorry, in a big Japanese conglomerate. You were their fintech initiative and head of blockchain. Also part of the R3 group. And before that, you were in a New York venture capital, RRE Ventures. So you've also been into this finance sector for many, many years. So how did you get in contact with blockchain in the first place?
Thanks for the introduction. So I'm currently working at Cumberland, which is one of the largest and oldest OTC liquidity provider in this space. We are mainly the prop trader of the cryptocurrency, mainly having to have around 40 crypto assets with 13 different fiat currencies to involve. We are, our parent company is called DRW, which has been running in this traditional finance era for the last 27 years, with having 900 employees in the space. Our key concept is to have the circulation, have the healthy crypto environment, and by delivering the physical cryptos in time without having any fraudulent activities. So that's the current role right now, and one of the main focus right now for me is that, of course, to have the circulation flow for the cryptocurrency in general, but also making the crypto ecosystem grow in the healthy and sustainable way by giving the, not education, so I don't want to be in that kind of like rude stuff, but like I'm giving the hints and what I learned from the experience that I had in the last 4 years by driving the project involving the blockchain and distributed ledger technologies, and having to hint that kind of technology will be plus in terms of corporate side. So when back in 4 years ago, this whole 4 years, 2015 was the time I got involved in the blockchain spaces, and the task that I was given by a CEO at that time was to find out some disruptive technology that might be changing the atmosphere landscape of the financial institution in next 5 to 10 years. And I was searching for like the other technology like artificial intelligence, natural language processing, big data, IoT, etc. But when I was researching around, the blockchain, Bitcoin hit. So until, to be very honest, I didn't know about Bitcoin or crypto until 2015 when I heavily got into this, and I knew that this technology will be eventually be the mainstream, and we wouldn't be even noticed by using the technology to say, hey, we're using blockchain technology. So that's what I envisaged, and for the past 4 years, I've developed about 10 to 12 projects that is to replicate the current incumbent system. yeah, I could talk about the experience, but I don't think this is not the timing. So that's the short, brief intro on how I got into the blockchain space.
So what do you see the biggest challenge or problem to grow the crypto ecosystem more?
Yeah, implementing blockchain technology, I've struggled this last 4 years. Long story short, having to develop or having to deploy this kind of technology into the current or replicating these technology into the current system is just too cumbersome, and it just takes a lot of effort, energy, because the regulation or the system, the procedure and operation is already built in the current regulation standards, and this technology is purely different from this perspective of having the central authority or having some administrator that is set versus having a distributed ledger where people are controlling each other, having transparency is just a total different atmosphere. So the proof of concepts I've done to 12, but none of them went to the pilot or into the production because there were so many frictions around the institution where I was in. There were 65,000 people involved. So that was the main struggle, and I honestly wanted to implement this kind of technology into a large institution and showing to around the world, but that was one of the regret that I have that I couldn't accomplish.
Maybe tomorrow. Great, I'll continue. Please, Andrew Chan, what can you tell me a little bit about eBank?
Right.
You're the CEO of eBank.
Okay. Right. Basically, eBank, we are creating our own e-wallets and our own digital tokens. Our aim is actually working towards more to a consumer market. So basically, I will put in to simplify it, probably using our tokens to be able to holiday, dining, and probably shop around using our eBank tokens.
So basically, usability of the token.
Yes, we work towards a consumer market. Yeah.
So I guess that's one of the issues many crypto companies have today, to get the usability, to reach the mainstream, to really have the usage of the token. So it's a big challenge.
Yeah, it's really a big challenge, especially I would say that in Singapore.
Yeah.
There's a lot of regulations going on that actually we don't really have the freedom to actually proceed and develop to what actually we intend to. You know, as the earlier panel discussions, some of them even think that we belongs to, sort of anti-money laundering.
Yeah.
That is the kind of image that when people ask me, says, what you're doing? I say, no, we're creating our own wallets, our own tokens. The first thing they know is that, is it something to do with Bitcoins? I say, probably you're doing with anti-money laundering. I actually came across one occasion that, we got an office in Singapore, and eventually I was made to sign something which is, to certify that I'm not into money laundering. So it's not easy over in Singapore, but probably we will develop into some other region first. Until one day, probably, if Singapore government thinks that, they are ready to accept things like that, so I think that would be great.
It's a problem for, it's the same in Europe. The media outlets, they really like to make a headline. So when something happens in Bitcoin or in crypto that is bad, it's being, magnified by a factor of 10. And then the normal people on the street read that and think, okay, this is about illegal stuff, but in reality, it's not. So it's something I personally think this will pass. It's like also when the car was a new technology, the main usage for the car was bank robbery because the police was riding a horse.
Yeah, yes.
So it's like the same analogy we're having now. But now everyone has a car or a motorbike, and it's nothing criminal.
Right.
That. Thank you. I'll continue to our last panelist, Kiana Sheikh, co-founder of DigiPhoenix Exchange. So tell me a little bit about DigiPhoenix.
Simply put it, DigiPhoenix is a very simple spot market exchange. We're based in headquarters in Singapore, and we have a few offices. The other one is like Hong Kong, we have Malaysia, and we were so focused in Southeast Asia. Maybe we were too focused in Southeast Asia. So after reaching 2 million registered users, we are now expanding overseas. Currently, we are reaching out to Middle East and some Europe countries, trying to get a license there and start new operations.
What do you have on your exchange?
Oh, it's a very simple spot market exchange. So we just trade the cryptos.
Crypto to crypto?
Yes. We do have fiat channels, and we offer credit card channels, but we're simply doing spot market plus the OTC market. What I meant is we don't have a large derivatives market, not yet. Not until we get regulations and license, everything ready.
Do you have like a special field that you focus on, or do you have like cryptocurrencies or ERC20 tokens or NFT tokens, or are you more?
If you checked out our applications or websites, you can see we are mainly trading on the mainstream tokens, of course, and we open a few trading zones, particularly for the really popular mainnet. For example, we'll have that for Tether for sure. We will have for Bitcoin Cash because it's a hot topic recently. And we're opening up different trading zones for fiat channels.
All right, thank you very much. So I would like to start this panel off with a quite general question, but it's also one important question. And what do you think the future of Bitcoin is? It's for anyone to answer.
Future of Bitcoin. So before joining the crypto world, I was in Baidu taking care of the AI technology. So I think the future, of course, if we want to upgrade our quality of lives, it's about technology. And then there's only two currently we could see in the future is about AI and crypto. So crypto is something, the blockchain technology is something that highly correlated to our future quality of life. So I think if we see, or I believe most of us here, believe that Bitcoin is sort of go 2.0, then the future is optimistic.
I wouldn't want to talk too far into the future, but in about 299 days, 19th of May, estimation, there's halving of Bitcoin reward. So something for us to think about. Joshua, do you have any comments?
I'll just try and give some market color for the question, right? I Kuma will probably agree with me. In Asia, the flows are very different from what you'd see elsewhere in the world. Whereas an American or a European trading desk might see 70 to 80% of their flows in Bitcoin and Ether, as in people will be buying and selling Bitcoin and Ether. In Asia, we see the opposite. It's like 70 to 80% of our flow is stable coins. So on a business case basis, stable coins are a lot more important to me, right? They are what drive a lot of the revenue and a lot of the capital mobility in the space. So that's not to say that Bitcoin isn't an important asset for us. It's obviously a transfer of value. A lot of people have it. It's the first crypto that they own. And fully decentralized, as yet uncompromised. So I think it will always have its place in the space. But for me as a business, stable coins are a lot more important.
And I just think on that point of stable coins, just in September last year, the IMF Madame Lagarde came out and talked about central bank digital currencies. So clearly, in this part of the world, there could be a necessity to have some type of central bank or even a pan-ASEAN, this association of Southeast Asian nations. There could be this concept where there could be a auxiliary currency to sort of go on this stablecoin theme, because in the brave new world, maybe you could have polarization, say, between the US dollar and the Chinese renminbi, but what happens to the rest of the world? So there could be a genuine need for some type of central bank or a regionally backed stablecoin.
Yes, so I mean, for example, if you want to...
Actually, that's a pretty good question for you with the Swedish Riksbank. I mean, how do you feel about this sort of concept of a central bank coin?
Well, personally, I would like the idea of the central bank to issue their own digital currency, because it makes the currency more fluid or liquid. You can use it all over the world. You don't need to have a third party to handle the currency for you. But the retail banks, of course, they don't like it so much. And then we also have recently the government of Iran, they want to make a gold-backed digital currency. So I think we will see quite many attempts from the governments to reclaim the digital money space.
Should I answer for the Bitcoin thing? Yeah, okay.
If you like, otherwise
I wouldn't be too specific about certain coins, but I probably wouldn't be here if I don't feel bullish about the cryptocurrency in general. I think, I'm not sure in the 3 or 5 years which coins will be staying, but as Joshua said, 70% of the dominance right now is Bitcoin, and other like Ethereum and Ripple and Litecoin is majority of the trading coins that's happening around the space. I'm sure CZ just gave like 1 week ago the article and saying that we don't have much of the new players coming into the spaces, and that's what we feel as well. And in order for this crypto world to be even better in the space, is that we need more institutional players coming into the space, and also the retail guys who will be able to access this the platform and cryptocurrency in general, so that they will feel the necessity or importance of it. Unless you touch, I heard in the last panel that people were having a survey and how many people have in Bitcoin. It was like 50%, but that's the thing. This is the specific conference events for blockchain and crypto, but it was kind of sad to see only 50% of having it. So. That's the conclusion, and in order for this to be the mainstream or become more adopted, we need to have more of the infrastructure and also the right players to play in the space.
Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, the user experience is still a very big problem. Having taken care of your private key, and this is where like Samsung could be a huge player. So wallet or key storage. Okay, thank you. We were recently, or 2017, we had a huge ICO hype where we had hundreds of projects raising hundreds of millions of dollars. But all this is behind us, and now we're having STOs and initial exchange offerings. What do you think is the next phase for startups and companies to raise funding or raise money in this new global economy which is growing?
I mean, I just think from a macro point of view, looking at this part of the world, as I mentioned, the Asia Development Bank has, from a supply point of view, has cited, that there needs to be a lot of capital raising done in this part of the world. I think from a demand point of view, there is, in this region, people do want to invest in bona fide assets, whether it's into a startup company or whether it's into a company with existing revenues, so it may be deemed to be a security. I mean, as a stock exchange, we would be looking at the latter, so, but sort of raising money for bona fide capital raisings through a fund structure or a debt structure. So I'd like to see the investment enthusiasm, kind of matching what the Asia Development Bank is suggesting for this part of the world, sort of bona fide capital raisings for infrastructure projects, or say a water treatment plant in Sumatra, or a factory, say, in Myanmar. So sort of genuine industrial or even resource projects, or we're even speaking to people in Malaysia about housing affordability. So there's this whole demand coming through, which you probably see in Europe more so in here, with regard to E, S and G investing, so environmental, social and good governance. So, we're talking to people about issuing green bonds, helping people to meet their Paris climate accord, quotas. So how can we, empower capital markets to have genuine investment products which informed investors can invest in? So hopefully the enthusiasm from the ICO world spills over to more informed investing into more bona fide projects, which could be blockchain listed, new financial instruments under a regulated envelope. Because I did actually watch the 2 hours or so of Mr. Marcus's testimony to the Senate, and both sides of the House, when it came to Libra, were kind of saying to him, not only do you have to prove your KYC and your AML, but you also have to prove, the trustworthiness of Facebook, which not every senator there fully agreed upon. So that tells to me that, the global regulators will allow this ecosystem to evolve, but it will have to be done under a stricter regulated overlay. That's my humble opinion.
I think that crypto continues to surprise, and if you just keep your eye on the ball, you'll notice there's more creative ways for people to raise. Algorand is an interesting one. If you look at it in detail, they raised $60 million about a month ago on CoinList using a reverse Dutch auction, and essentially they sold a put, meaning they sold a token that you can redeem for 90% of its value within a year. So just the fact that you have a retail market that's willing to put up $60 million of capital in approximately 4 hours and purchase a derivative contract on a token is an innovation away from just spot, ICO, IEO, right? And then if you break down what Libra is, you get a bunch of Fortune 500 companies that give you $10 million each until you got $1 billion in the bank. That's another way to raise money. I think the innovation keeps on coming. I'm not like super bullish on all these different methods, but people are going to find a way. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with that. But then again, Facebook has a massive user base, so it's also difficult to compete with that.
As a representative from an exchange, I'd say all these ICO, IEO, STO, whatever we name it, there's no specific definition from any regulatory government or whatever. It's just the label that we name it. So the purpose of us exchanges being here is to solve users' pain point. So when you want the liquidity, we provide it. When you want fiat channel, we provide it. The difference between ICO and IEO is the listing. So 90% of the ICO can't be listed on any exchanges. But with the IEO, we package the whole thing because it is sort of guaranteed to be listed on certain exchanges. And exchanges, we have done DD for our users. So that's why we have a new label for ICO. And then STO, when we add some regulations, we add something, we solve users' pain point. So in the future, I'd say what I can see currently is the token economy, because we receive a lot of requests from the traditional businesses helping them to do sort of like blockchain plus. So how can we transform the traditional business, help them to do fundraising or join the crypto world? That's what we are focusing on. Then that could be the future.
Do you think all companies will have a token in the future? Like, will it be as common to have a token as you have a web page today, for example?
Have a token?
You mentioned.
I don't think every company, but those who would like to add blockchain technology. So a tokenized company without blockchain technology, it could be called a scam. So I don't think so, but those companies who would like to transform or take the business to another level, they could, and they will.
Yeah, it might be that having your own smart contract or decentralized application is also a way for customers to interact directly with your business. And then using a token economy. I mean, this is just I'm speaking with all of you in the panel, not just you, but this is something that could really enhance the networking effect of business. If you compare a smart contract with a web page is just information, and a smart contract is a contract. Any thoughts around that?
I just want to add a little bit about STO is not dead yet, but I'm still bullish that STO one day will come back. It's just regulatory constraints and all that, and this year we're not seeing much of that. But I want to say that we are very far away from self-executing smart contracts that a certain token will automatically pay out certain coupons upon triggering of certain market events or whatsoever. We are very far from that. I mean, if you go back to even in the equities market, those were the days where you used to have paper certificate, company equity certificates, stocks, share certificate. Then after that, you have digital, right? But in the meantime, during that period, there was overlap, right? You've got physical stock certificate, you've got digital. So there were one time there was overlapping. So in the STO space, we have not even reached that space where paper contract overlap and coincide with security tokens yet. We don't even have a proper security token exchange in Singapore. So I think we are very, very far from that space where a lot of some of my friends are talking about security tokens freely tradable and things like that. But a time will come. I want to quote the ex-CEO of I think NASDAQ or something like that. He mentioned that in theory you can tokenize everything, but in actual fact you should tokenize everything. But that wouldn't happen probably in next year or so. But it could be a bit longer term. But I feel that there are certain markets that are extremely inefficient. So it's time for us to look at other ways to monetize and create liquidity in that space, but not forgetting regulation. So if it's a security token, it is a security. So just be mindful on the respective jurisdiction securities or futures act, like in Singapore SFA, for example. So just be mindful of that. And once you satisfy that, and there are proper marketplaces where you can either list or trade these tokens, then hopefully eventually liquidity will come. And from there, we can talk about tokenize everything, but we're not there yet.
I mean, just to pick up on Anthony's point, that's why I suggested before with the Gibraltar Stock Exchange, even though we're a stock exchange, our first foray into the digital world will be a fund structure, an open-ended fund structure. So in Gibraltar, probably rather uniquely, when a regular fund is issued, it's dematerialized. You don't get given a paper certificate. It's a bit like the previous panel was talking about. Essentially, it's digital. So it makes sense for us to do our first tokenized issuance of a fund structure where we move it from a digital dematerialized fund, which we have already listed now. And then I think in August next month, we'll be doing our first digitalized and then moving it over into a tokenized framework where we can do maybe sort of peer-to-peer transactions. But essentially, let's just do things very slowly, and if we do use a smart contract, it'll be a very rudimentary type transaction. So rather than going to try issuing a share and doing dividends and dividend splits, et cetera, let's just do something really vanilla, which doesn't need too much secondary market trading. So in the future, we would love to have QCP and our friends from Cumberland, providing liquidity for our digital securities. But right now, let's just do something which is, basically a very simple structure.
So, Andrew, would you like to say something about trading strategies for retail clients?
Trading strategy, yeah?
For retail investors?
Basically, I would put into two aspects. Firstly, would be the knowing the company background. The company have to define very clearly their goal, and also they have to be 100% transparency. And on top of that, of course, you have to know the project developers, who is behind the project developers, where they are located. And on the second aspect, I would say is that technical analysis. Basically, I would put into 3 points, entry points, profit-taking points, and cut-loss point. So how to determine all these 3 points? Probably you can determine from the chart, the MACD, the moving average, trend line, and the stochastic analysis. So basically, from the chart, we can find out the resistance and the support point. This is how I would put into 2 aspects. Basically, I think a lot of retail investors, their mistake is they tends to have a trading plan, but they tends to sell when it comes into the entry point. They tends to sell once they see a profit, and when there's losses, they don't cut loss. It's just like, for example, you see, when it drops, they stay on. So my advice is draw a good trading plan and be firm with it.
What do you think about the HODL strategy?
What?
The HODL strategy is that you hold your asset as long as you can.
Okay. Yeah, it all depends. I would say is that I have my own point of view, but it when it comes to investment, I think everybody will be very careful of unless you have too much money in the bank and you just take it as a game, then, well, it's still your call, right?
Yeah. All right. Thank you, everyone. We have a few minutes left, and I want to open up the floor for any potential questions. Do we have a question for the panelists? There's one. You could say your name and then your question.
Hello, everybody. My name is Charlie. Okay, and right now I have a question for Mr. Andrew James. That I know that in the past have some project is a wallet token like event. Its name is Plus token and SF. And both project is very famous in the past, just a few months ago. And right now they have some problem with their company. And I want to ask about the future of your company, because someone talked with me that the wallet token is still not a hot trend right now. And what's about your opinion for this?
Okay, let me try to answer your question. To simplify everything, if you believe in us, stay with us. Individual companies, they have their own ways of developing their own companies. Anything that go up will come down, but it will go up again. So what I'm trying to tell you is that if you decided to be with this company, stay firm and believe in it. Don't be influenced by what other companies that might be doing the same that is related to what we are doing and be affected by it. I will only can tell you that, look, believe in eBank, stay with us. Right?
One more question for Ikuma. You are from Japan? Yes. I know that in Japan, the government accept Bitcoin for popular. The Japanese can buy everything by Bitcoin in the markets, supermarkets. So I want to ask you that what about how many percent people in Japan are willing with Bitcoin, with cryptocurrency?
To answer your question, 1% of the sales right now for one of the largest electronic retail shop is being used by Bitcoin. But I believe on the hype of the 2017 November, 60% of the crypto trading was dominated by Japanese. So they're very, how should I say, very flexible in minds of using or investing in cryptos. But again, this is still niche market, and majority of the people are 20s and mid-30s. But as you know, the population in Japan right now is mostly dominated by over 50s. So unless we get that kind of market, there's not much of the chance that the crypto will be the mainstream for the payment processes. But I do believe this is one of the vehicles that we could go to invest. Use a credit card, top it up with an application to convert that crypto to fiat, then use that on a railroad or something like that. Those kind of world is already here in Singapore. You could actually use the crypto credit card to get into the metro MRTs. But these little innovations is one of the key factors where the crypto economy will keep growing.
Okay, time's up. Thank you, everyone. Please give the panelists a warm applause. Thank you.